So thank you everyone for joining us today. And I would like to extend a warm welcome on behalf of INTACH and INTACH Heritage Academy. You've taken out time from your schedules and decided to join us today. Uh, Today we are here to talk about a very a very important project that we have been closely working on for the past 2-3 years, and we thought of sharing it to our chapters, our dear chapters that we work closely with. And also there might be a lot many people who might not be part of our chapters or anyhow associated with INTACH, but it will be a wonderful insight uh, into, of course, you are conservation, you might be oriented towards conservation and heritage and can be categorized into the category of heritage enthusiasts. So it will be an interesting take to see how everything cannot be, it's not just words. How can we utilize culture and heritage and put it to good use when it comes to development? So for that, I would like to invite Dr. Naveen Piplani, who is the principal director of INTACH Heritage Academy and has been the one who initiated this project in the first place and did all the hard work and can be called a sutradhar for it, maybe. And welcome, sir. And over to you. Dr. Piplani will be presenting about the conceptual bits of the program that we are going to be talking about, INTACH Cities for Culture. And after that, I'll be explaining the methodology of it, how to go about it, and what will be the essential elements if we talk about the program. So yeah, over to you, sir.
Thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, as Sukriti mentioned, that this is a project which is very close to the heart of INTACH Heritage Academy and all of INTACH. And this is the first time we are doing this very large scale outreach event. And one of the reasons is that we have been working on the project for last 2-3 years, and now that we have put it all together, is a good time to share it with the wider community within INTACH, within India, and even outside if there are people connecting us from outside India. So I'll basically take you through the journey of this whole thing, and the primary objective, if I may say, the conceptual objective of this outreach program, which is going to run over next 10 months, including this one, so over next 9 months, one day in a month, which I'm sure as citizens of this country should be our not priority but a duty, constitutional duty, which mentions that preservation and protection of our cultural heritage is the duty of every citizen of India, enshrined in the article of Constitution. And I think I would appeal to all of you and through you others that please take time out, considering it as your duty, fundamental duty towards the nation, for the preservation of heritage. And we are not asking for more, only 1 hour in 1 month over next 9 months. And why and how will be explained to you today. I'm very happy to see that we received a huge amount of interest in this program by way of registration, and hopefully many of them will join us today uh, into something that we are calling INTACH Cities for Culture program. It did not actually start from that. It started with INTACH. We started with the Agenda 21 for Culture as this program, which I had got to know in Jeju, South Korea. Now, the funny thing is that I am on the speaker mode, but it is showing Sukriti. Is everybody facing that or only me?
No.
Enas?
Yeah.
You can see me.
Yeah, we can see you. We'll
Okay,
put
now I can see myself. Okay, good. Yeah, it was very strange that I was on the speaker mode and I wasn't there. Anyway, so the story begins in Jeju. Jeju is a small island in South Korea, And we had presented something called at the Asian Network of Cities. We had presented role of culture and INTAC's participation and all of that. And there I got to know about this Agenda 21 for culture. And this is a program which I immediately jumped upon as a program to be brought to India, and as a program to be taken up by INTAC, primarily because you've got 200 chapters all across the country. 200 chapter means at least over 150 cities all across the country, which is a huge number. And in each city, if any one of you has got a calculator, can tell me a couple of minutes later in the chat box, if each city has, even if it has about 5 million or 3 to 5 million range of population. Surely Delhi has much more. Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, Calcutta have much more. But on an average, even if we take like 3 to 5 million, how many critical mass of citizens of India, INTACH touches via its chapters? And if we include institutional members, then that number grows even further. So my first reaction was, when we talk about the Agenda 21 for culture and localizing it and making it available to a large number of population who are related to or concerned with culture, we can very easily do it through our chapters, and therefore it should come to INTACH, and INTACH should take it up. And then and but that was really my what should I say? It was my imagination, because I was in Jeju. I had not spoken to anyone in the management, and I was only hoping that INTACH would take it up, but INTACH could have very well thrown it out of the window and said, "Look, we've got enough, and forget about it." So this is all in imagination. But as I said, when you go to interesting places and you meet interesting people and you see interesting ideas, one should start imagining. One should start imagining how can it be brought to your own context, how can it be shared with your own people, and how can it be disseminated in your own context. And therefore that imagination stayed with me. We came back, I made some presentations, several levels, including our coordination committee meeting, and then chapters committee meeting, and the project selection committee meeting, and finally at the governing council, which is the highest apex body of INTACH. Uh, um, and at that meeting, I think it was already 3 years back. At that governing council meeting, there was a huge response, and they said that we are happy to do this, but we will not give you any money. So, like, you really want to go to the moon, and perhaps on a bicycle, which you have to assemble yourself. Anyway, I said, okay, we'll do it without any money. We started with that, given that there is no money. I think they were challenging me, or they were basically saying that, if you pull the floor out of under the shoes of somebody or foot of somebody, how is he going to walk anyway? But we did float, and IHA took it upon itself. We did not go to main INTACH for money, not even a single penny, except that I had to request Sukriti to do it in her free time so that it doesn't go out of her salary. I mean, these are the things that you need to do. You see, if you got an imagination and a dream, then you got to deliver, even if the institutional framework doesn't allow you to do so, or at least at the initial stages. So the story goes on, and we worked on it. I think there was somebody else before Sukriti. Sukriti will tell more about this program. My memory is failing me. I'm getting old. But Sukriti will tell us. But there was somebody else who also worked on this program in the initial stages, and then we basically made one document which had the Agenda 21 for culture. I'll quickly run you through. And then I again went to the governing council that, look, this is what we have done so far. And they said, okay, we'll do it as a pilot project in one of the cities or one of the chapters of INTACH. The condition is same, no money. I said, okay, we moved one step forward. So there was no money. Anyway, so we went along, and then I had to persuade, and he very kindly agreed. Our Bhopal chapter convener, Mr. Upadhyay, who's a retired IAS officer and very well established in the governance framework of Bhopal and Madhya Pradesh. वो कहते हैं कि जिस वो को है ना एक कुछ आप if you want to do something then the all energies come together. Shah Rukh Khan movie thing, and it really happened like that. And so one afternoon he invited me to make a presentation to a whole lot of municipal commissioners and all these government top officials in Bhopal. And I made a presentation, and they said, "Look, ये तो हम कर ही रहे हैं, इसमें नया क्या है? ये तो हम ये तो this is happening." Well, I said it's good that it is happening, but let's go through the presentation and then maybe we'll come back to the same question. So I did this presentation for 20 minutes, hoping that, oh, not hoping, fearing rather, that these guys are not going to buy it, and I'll have to fly back to Delhi. Anyhow, at the end of 20-30 minutes, we made the presentation and we had huge discussion amongst ourselves. And it was at the Atal Bihari Institute of Good Governance and Policy Analysis at AIGGPA at Bhopal. And really, I found, and if I may say so, after a very long time, such a dynamic Director General of the Institute who listened to me carefully. His first reaction was that we are doing it when I met him earlier. But after 30 minutes, he said, we are not doing it in the way you are telling us. So there was a little window, little door crack opening, and little ray of hope. And then he laid it open for the discussion with all the commissioner of municipality and urban development and public health, and there were about, I think, if not more, at least 10 people around the table from 10 different departments in Bhopal: education, etc., health. The tipping point was, and that's where when I said the synergies come together, the tipping point was when he said that, look, INTACH doesn't have any money to do this. Do what is what going to come to you, but I'm just telling you a little nice story behind it. INTACH doesn't have the money to do it. And I said, look, we had it. INTACH doesn't have the money. They'll say, we also don't have the money. So, let's pack up and go. But then he said, I want the money to come from you people. Turning point of this entire conversation. And money had to come from municipal corporation. So he asked this lady, how much money have you got? She said, under the smart city, 6,000 crores. And we said, look, that's a huge amount of money. What are you even going to do with it? But I was quiet because I dare I open my mouth and she says, look, we don't have any money for you. Go away. So I was just listening to this whole thing quietly and let the Director General take a lead. And they worked it out within 5 minutes. And money was made available to the Bhopal chapter, or rather this institute, to carry out this study for the first 1 year with their own resources, in their own building, in their own infrastructure. I mean, it was almost like they took ownership of this entire project proposal for at least 1 year, and we had anticipated 1 year, so that was built into the proposal. And they appointed a research associate who will come and speak to you over the next sessions. So here I'm presenting to you from imagination to rejection to negotiation and to finalization of a project, which you will see in a couple of minutes. So which means that there is such a strong fundamental or what is the right word? There's a strong fundamental uh, uh, basis. So there's a strong fundamental niceness to this whole concept of sustainable development goals and Agenda 21 for culture and pushing culture to come into mainstream. This such a basic connect, that it found its way through, and we had this project off the ground, which I will just take you through a few slides to briefly tell you what the project is. But my little story as a preface to this project was that I really invite all chapters of INTACH, all institutions in the country, all cities in the country who may not be our chapter, who may not be formally associated, can pick it up. It is available free of cost online for all of us to pick it up. Now we took this and we finished one city, and we are hoping that we'll do it with other chapters and other cities also. It's not a very expensive endeavor. It takes you about 15 to 20 lakhs per year, and a research associate, and the entire framework is already worked out. So with that brief introduction, I'm now going to share my screen, and let's see how far we go with this. Hmm. If there are any questions or anything, we'll take it up at the end of the session. This is only a 1 hour thing. So both Sukriti and me will keep to time, and we'll finish it in a way that we get some time for discussion. So this initiative is a nationwide initiative which we have termed as Cities for Culture, and it basically deals with citizenship, with culture and sustainable development. So what is it all about? It's all about INTACH Heritage Academy taking lead in developing the program and trying to connect the various divisions, the technical divisions of INTACH, which if I do very quickly is architectural heritage, heritage education, intangible cultural heritage, chapters, heritage crafts and communities, heritage tourism, the chapters on the ground, natural heritage, and art and material heritage division. All these cutting across through this program, and then working with all our 200 plus chapters across the country, across the subcontinent, and talking to them about this absolutely fantastic initiative called Agenda 21 for Culture. This program is based upon this conceptual idea, which is available on the website of UCLG, United Cities for Local Governments. So what is this Agenda 21 for Culture? It is a founding document, the first worldwide document that promotes policies and actions by cities and local governments for cultural developments. It is a global platform of cities, organizations, and networks to learn, to cooperate, and to launch policies and programs on the role of culture in sustainable development. The platform was the UCLG, United Cities and Local Government. This is a brief timeline. It all started in 1992 in Brazil. In 2002, it became the World Public Meeting on Culture in Rio. In 2004, Barcelona, Spain developed final document on agenda 2004, 15 September. October, UCLG assumed coordination of the program. First working group set up in 2006, then again in Brazil 2012. In 2015, the UN Sustainable Development Goals program was launched for 2030. The program was adopted in 2015 and the goal was 2030, and 2030 would be the realization. That is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the UN. And these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals which will appear in front of you. And I'm sure many of you are already aware of these goals. If not, they are all available on the website. You can very easily go on the website and take a look at it. What we were concerned with through in this program is the 11th goal. And 11th goal, which talks about making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So, this gives a lot of windows to work. It is not architectural, it is not built, it is not intangible, it is not one of these. It is a lot of or many of these when we talk about sustainable cities and communities. So I think this is a very fantastic opportunity, amazing opportunity for heritage professionals to come together, because there's in it something for everyone to work and to contribute. By 2030, ensure access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services and upgrade some. I'm not going to read all of these, they are all available, but I'm saying that by 2030, so there is still time, and this is the key point when the presentation that I was making to AIGGPA, saying that, look, we've still got time. We were not as active in 2015, we missed the bus, but we don't want to miss the bus in 2030. And India's voice as a nation has to be and must be included in the discussions in 2030 when they are going to be perhaps redefining or re-looking at the sustainable development goals. Under the goal 11, there is one goal in 11.4, or the fourth goal, which says strengthen efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. Not to get confused, it is not talking about world heritage sites. It is talking about worlds, which means you go beyond world heritage, beyond protected and beyond monuments. You talk about urban heritage, rural heritage, no heritage, even if that is a category, but it is useful and meaningful to the society. Now, for sustainable development, it is crucial to harmonize three core elements. That is the social element, the economic element, and environmental element, which is what the original definition of sustainability is all about. And they are all interlinked. So they are also verticals which exist independently, but then they overlap and then they interlink with each other. And what we are saying that the fourth pillar of sustainability is culture. But what also we are suggesting is that it is not only the fourth pillar, it is the basis for all three others: socio-economic, social, economic, and environmental aspects. The basis is culture. Now, that was again another turning point in the discussion, that culture in sustainable development can be put as the fourth pillar, and it can overlap with all three. But if you put it in the center, then all three kind of emerge and converge at culture. So culture comes at the pivotal point of for sustainable development. So this is the idea that we are trying to kind of push forward. And if we get successful, then culture can even be the all embracing phenomena, and social, economic, and environmental can very well be embedded in the cultural umbrella, which is a kind of a long shot, but we are working towards that. As Amartya Sen said, cultural matters are integral parts of the lives we lead. If development can be seen as enhancement of our living standards, then efforts geared to development can hardly ignore the world of culture. So that, coming from an economist, really puts culture as a very strong starting point for development. So the mission is to promote culture as the fourth pillar of sustainable development through the international dissemination and local implementation of Agenda 21 for culture. The cities across the globe that have already signed to be the Agenda 21 members are, I think, about 53 or so. Although, unfortunately, sadly, there is no city from India in this list. So the key point to note is that there is no Indian cities pass. So therefore, the question is, how will India ever contribute to SDGs 2030 if we are not even part of the discussion? One has to start talking about these matters. Then only one can evaluate, assess, critically analyze, discuss, dialogue, and be able to present a point of view to the global community, international community, to be able to then participate in actively in 2030 when they'll be meeting and discussing things. So the aim is to be an international guide that is applicable all over the world, tool that promotes knowledge, facilitates exchange of good practices, and strengthens a global network of effective and innovative cities and local government. This whole thing of culture 21 or agenda 21 for culture, this is the goal and this is the objectives, and it's a very interesting tool. It may not work exactly it may not work exactly as is, so you may have to adapt it, but it's a fantastic tool to start with and to bring culture to the forefront of the discussion in the first place. Now, the before I hand it over to Sukriti, the last point that I want to make is that although this program is mandated to local cities, because it's United Cities and local governments, which basically translates into being carried over by the mayor, because mayor is the representative, elected representative of the city. And then you have the whole infrastructure and the machinery that revolve around municipalities and schools and educational institutions and tourism and archaeology, etc., etc. There are many wings, but the city is usually represented by the mayor. So the mayors become members when you become a member of UCLG. Now, in the structure of INTACH, we are not a government body. We are not we don't have direct interaction, or we are not representatives of the city. So we had to tweak the program a little bit and say that instead of local cities, we'll make it local chapters. And our chapter conveners would take up this responsibility to adopt this program. And once the program is kind of done and presented and finished and the rest of it, then we will go to the city mayor for adoption and for taking his or her blessings, vetting, etc. But from the beginning, INTACH will not be working independently or in or what is the right word, within itself. We'll have to we open ourselves. So from the beginning, that discussion will happen with all government departments, state departments, local departments, urban local bodies, and the rest of it in the city, the government mechanism in the city, maybe at an informal level with signing of an letter of agreement or an MOU. But and if the funding can come from there, then it becomes a legitimate exercise even in their financial proposal. But once the report is done, which will be presented to you, that report is then vetted and adopted by the city. So INTACH almost kind of performs, or any institution, I'm just taking INTACH name, but because I can't speak for other institutions, any other institution, doing the work as a duty towards protection and preservation of heritage in your local city or town as your constitutional duty, but taking care of reimbursements, and because we don't want people to go out of pocket, and then presenting it to the city and saying, look, this is now done. Now can we work further from here and bring culture to the center of decision making in every policy, cultural policy, education policy, public health policy, infrastructure policy, planning policy, master plans, any policy that a city makes, culture should be at the core of it. And here is the 9 commitments and the document that we've already worked upon. So you don't have to start from scratch. Work has already been done for you. With that, I hand it over to Sukriti. She will speak to you for another 10-15 minutes. And this session is only to present the 9 commitments conceptually. But every session henceforth will pick up one commitment and go in much detail as to how you go about it, how you prepare the document, how you collect the data, how you analyze the data, and how you eventually present it in the report from the radar report. So Sukriti, over to you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you for thank you for providing with this overall picture of the program, and it was actually fruitful and useful, considering how do we go about uh, going around the inception of a program, and how do you actually get it to work, and it becomes very difficult on ground, right? So it was a beautiful insight, considering that. I, on the other hand, will now be explaining about how did we go around getting that particular program implemented. As sir mentioned, that we did it with Bhopal being a pilot chapter for us for this particular program. How did we go about carrying out that forward in the practical aspects, and what all problems did we face? Uh, so I think in this particular series of webinars, there'll be 10 webinars that we'll be hosting, and each day we'll be taking up a new commitment that will relate culture with that specific commitment, and what all measures or what all things can we possibly do in order to achieve that commitment. I think there might be, of course, there are a lot many chapter members, chapter conveners, and co-conveners who have joined us today. Uh, it will be a project to them. It can be a project to them, given their, given their agreement to it. But there are a lot many individuals who do not belong to any such chapter, or who are not INTACH member in whatsoever way. You might be wondering, why this question? What do we have to do with sustainable development goals? Or no. So just a second, sorry. Sorry for that. Yeah. So you might be wondering, what do we do with this? Why us? Why do we want to talk about it? The thing is, Sustainability, I keep saying this statement a lot. Sustainability as a concept is nothing new to us or for anyone, for that matter. And all these conversations that keep happening around the globe regarding sustainable development goals, for that matter, they have been, all these organizations have been doing that in a niche, right? And it's high time that we kind of take that thing for ourselves, because all these development policies and all these proposals that are coming about are for us. And who would understand it better? Who would understand the context of the place that we're trying to get it implemented for better than us? So no one understands the context better than us, better than the residents of that particular city. Why not utilize that opportunity to get those development policies implemented with our perspective, because no one but us knows the cities best. So this kind of a program kind of provides you with that insight, and how can we make a concept more approachable and more practical. And if you think about it, culture is something that kind of binds us together in general. And you'll see over these due course of 10 days, you will see how it's so very intrinsic, and it's so very much present there. It's just a matter of, a matter of perception that we see all these things and get those implemented in terms of development policies that we suggest. So without wasting any time, I'll share my screen, and we'll just quickly discuss about the commitments that we have been talking about for long. All right. So again, the program is INTACH Cities for Culture. We all know that Sir has beautifully explained about uh, how everything came into picture, the UN sustainable, okay, sorry, the UN sustainable goals, how they came into picture, the Rio, everything, right? I'll not get into that. A lot of you might be aware about sustainable development goals. A lot of you might not be. So I'll request you to do a background study just before we take on this journey for the next sessions. These are the 17 basic goals that the UN has suggested again, and we fit into the category of the 11th goal specifically, where 11.4 more specific, where we kind of talk about how culture can bring about all that change without any hassle. Again, the culture is something that binds all the different aspects together, and how it can become the core of all the development practices that we have been proposing and we are trying to propose. Culture, of course, binds us together, small little examples in all various forms, in all realms of our lives, which makes it very important to us and very natural to us. INTACH IHA proposes utilizing that culture as an asset to develop furthermore. And we have, of course, taken help from UCLG, who has proposed Agenda 21 for Culture. It's loosely based on the 9 commitments that it categorizes. And those 9 commitments, furthermore, have action points within themselves. Each commitment has, I guess, I'm guessing 12 to 13 action points, which encompasses all possible, sectors in which culture can be helpful in attaining the development policies. For chapters and chapter members, the program will loosely, run around for 3 years. There'll be different outcomes that one needs to achieve over the due course. And there might be certain reports, there might be certain meetings, stakeholder meetings for that matter, department meetings that you might have to organize within that span. And once you have achieved that, there'll be an endpoint to it. So it's supposed to run for 3 years. The 9 commitments, the famous 9 commitments that we've been talking on and off about, can be broadly categorized into rights, heritage, diversity and creativity, education, environment, economy, equality and social inclusion, urban planning and public spaces, information and knowledge, and then last but of course not the least and very important, governance of culture. In all these things, we are trying to relate culture with each of these specific 9 commitments and see how they can be worked around all these commitments. What will happen? What will be the outcome of all these things? This is specifically for chapters. What will be the methodology when you will, when you will take up the program, and what will be that you will be doing in order to achieve these things? You will try and understand each commitment and its scope with reference to your specific city. You'll try and recognize the local government bodies, the civil society organizations, and the stakeholders who will probably help and aid us in carrying out this particular program. In order to do that, you'll have to collect a lot of information. Interestingly, with respect to Bhopal, also, I'll give you a little bit of this backlog. What happened was, since it was a pilot project for us and it was a pilot city, we didn't know how to go about it. And it was an extensive thing to do. We had to collect a lot of data. And in that, we realized it's not as tough as we were thinking it to be. All of the things that we were trying to achieve were already happening in some capacity, somewhere or the other, but they were not there right out in the front. Of course, there were lots of lags. There were lots of things that were not carried out also. So it kind of gave us this, this broader, bigger picture. We kind of assessed where we, assessed the existing situation, how culture is helpful in carrying out the activities that are proposed. They are anyway, invariably happening. And what is the gap? How can we fill the gap in the development practices that are happening with respect to culture? So it was an interesting thing to do. And as I said earlier, it was not as difficult as we thought it to be. It was all there. So you might find it a bit hectic. You might find it a bit, rigorous. It might be, but it's not that difficult. Coming back to a methodology, we'll probably prepare. So you'll have to, go to all these departments. You'll have to collect a lot of data. For that, what do we do? You'll have to prepare lots of questionnaires for each of the specific stakeholder departments with respect to each commitment, and probably, try to create a dialogue, because that's how it will work in a better way. A lot of times, the information you're trying to seek might miss out. So you'll have to be very particular of the things that you want. Once you're done with that, you'll collect all the relevant data with respect to annual reports, websites of the stakeholder departments. You'll try to analyze it and see how that is being helpful in the current context. And again, you'll try and assess the gap. I'll not go into further detail because it's a bit complicated, and only, whosoever is interested in taking it should know about it. Otherwise, it's pointless. So what we'll probably try to do is, so I was mentioning about the different action points, the 12 action points or 13 action points within each commitment. These are the listed ones. And that's how you kind of connect and see how culture is relevant with respect to all these action points. In the next 10 sessions, we'll take up each commitment and discuss their action points specifically and see how they can be utilized. We'll also have an example in our hand of Bhopal and how did we try to relate it with the city of Bhopal. What is the importance of the whole project for the chapters? We all know the chapters INTACH closely works with all its chapters. And we have, fortunately, we have this intense network of chapters, chapter members, the conveners, co-conveners, lots of people working in it. And as I think Naveen says clearly mentioned that this is, this is one of the initial projects where we are involving chapters with the main INTACH working. And it will be a good opportunity for chapters to understand the working methodology of how to go about those projects, such projects, so that they can probably pursue it further on their own within their specific regions, right? At times, a lot of chapters rely on the main headquarters for all the, all this kind of work. It will probably help them and aid them and support them in pursuing such kind of projects on their own. So this is, of course, a stepping stone for that. And we hope it kind of provides you with that intellect to go about taking such projects. What we as the repository or INTACH headquarters will assist you with. Of course, there are different, whosoever is familiar with INTACH would know that we have different divisions working extensively on different possible realms. We have the intangible cultural division, we have the communities division, we have the tourism cell, then we have art and material heritage, we have natural heritage. We have a specific department that works in the education of cultural heritage. And for children, we have a knowledge center, and then again we have the chapters. So we have all these possible repositories on their, in their own, working specifically towards one of the goals. Now, interestingly, this particular program, if we were just discussing and we were just thinking, if we were to categorize it, we can easily see how all these commitments can fit into the category in within the umbrella of all these divisions, and it will be easier to pursue this particular thing and get it implemented on ground. So as a headquarter, we'll try and help you. If you take that project, we'll try and help you, provide all the possible help with the help of our divisions. I think I mentioned in the beginning that there'll be certain activities. Since it's a 3-year-long project, you'll have to carry out certain activities, and there'll be certain deliverables that you have to work upon in order to complete that project. Of course, to begin with, it will be a very basic city profile, then doing lots of workshops, which we anyway do, right? Which we anyway carry out heritage walks or orientation workshops within our chapters. So all this thing is nothing new. It's just that the orientation becomes a bit different in comparison. I'll not get into the details of it. It's something that we can probably discuss later. Yes, all these things we'll probably discuss later, not getting into it. And of course, these are the 2 deliverables that we found we got extracted out for the city of Bhopal. And this particular document, it's an extensive report which analyzes the cultural question of the city of Bhopal and literally proposes lots of activities which take culture as their focal point. And it's very interesting. And we were talking about how to identify different stakeholders. What we did was, I'll just quickly show you a little bit of our methodology. In one of the commitments, for example, if we take the commitment of heritage, diversity, and creativity, we identified different departments on state level, if there might be any NGOs working in any departments, sub-organizations, specific projects that are catering to that particular commitment, or offices under ministries or other institutions per se, and analyzed all the data given by these organizations. I know it sounds extensive and exhausting, but trust me, once you get into it, you will do it. So yeah, different departments again on different levels. You can probably, this is just some of the departments that we could identify, and they were the main departments that were working in that realm. So you can probably see and assess what all departments are working in your area. Now, what will you get out of this project? You will constantly keep asking yourself what you will have to assess. We have this constant pressure of arranging funding and everything. Sir has clearly mentioned how it has been a difficult ride for us, of course. But what will you get out of it? Funding the humko hi, we have to arrange all the funding. We have to get everyone on board. In these stakeholder meetings and in all these department meetings, you get a lot of backfiring also at times. What will we get out of it? Even for the people who are not associated with chapters, what do we get out of this whole thing? Development of platforms to link stake, of course. Once you start creating these kind of dialogues, it kind of provides you an ownership to the cities that we have been living in. It kind of helps us in reclaiming are things that we never really reclaim. Okay. Then in the due process of identifying things, you'll probably start up coming up with different initiatives which will keep culture in the core of it and devise all the activities around it. You can probably come up with framework for cultural heritage conservation. We all are struggling, as heritage professionals, we all are struggling in that area, in that realm, and it can help you and of course aid you in that. In the meanwhile, tourism in general has been a highlight in any historic or cultural city. So you can probably develop that. Recognition of, in the due course, you'll also get to know about the different heritage properties, tangible, intangible, in the urban planning or the development area that you're looking at. You can also find innovative ways for employment generation in the cultural sector. We are facing a lot in the sector because the sector in general is not really developed when it comes to employment opportunities. So by doing that, you are creating a lot of employment opportunities for people who want to pursue culture. Okay. There'll be capacity building. You will be able to meet a lot of people. They might also get interested in the whole, heritage preservation, conservation, and in the due course, you will help in capacity building of it. Uh, you'll know a lot more about your city. You will develop again lots of methods to disseminate that knowledge. Why are we, as heritage professionals, what are we trying to do? Heritage conservation is not just about, it's not just about extracting information. It's also about passing it down, to your further generations so that they can probably know about the richness of the culture that we belong to the diversity of it. So it will help you understand those ways and disseminate that in a better way. Also, you might know about the differences. There might be, I think, I said about the existing things that were there and the gap that is still there. So you might get a better idea of it, and accordingly you might come up with different strategies to cope up with that, giving the development a much more holistic approach. Okay. And last, we might even come up with a cultural policy, as unfortunate it might sound, as a nation that has so much of culture in it. Unfortunately, we don't have any cultural policy in place. And there might be there are various reasons for it, but we can probably come up with certain guidelines or certain policies in the local context, if not the national context. So that might be, these might be some of the reasons which helps you understand why we want you to pursue this project or pursue the idea that culture can be used for getting all this, all the development policies working together. It's a better way, it's a better approach. And yeah, so that's about it. I think I'll stop sharing my screen. And I think I'll put an end to the session. If anyone has any questions, we can probably take it in the next 5 minutes. Anything sir would like to add on to what we have presented by far?
No, let's open it out and see if there are any questions, or if you even want to add on something, please feel free to do it.
See, we are just trying to create a dialogue. It's not something that we are coming up with and imposing on anyone. It's the idea is to create a dialogue. So anything, any suggestions or any question that someone is having, please feel free to ask.
We have a question from Priyanka Panjwani in the chat box.
Hmm.
How can members connect with conveners to kickstart this project?
Okay, we have a question with from Miss Panchwani. She's asking, how can members connect with conveners to kickstart this project, or will IHA get in touch with conveners? Okay, so what we usually do is it goes the other way around. Conveners show interest in that particular project, and they write to the chapters. We have a dedicated chapters division for that, and they write to the chapters division forward it to us, and then we take it forward. But since you are interested, of course you are a member and you should be interested in taking up this particular project, you should go and meet your convener. And there's a whole list of conveners of specific states, districts available. So you can get in touch with them directly, or you can write to the chapters division and they can help you or assist you in carrying out that. Any other questions? Okay, we have a question from Mr. Umrigar. Can we get this presentation for taking it up with our chapter separately? Of course, sir, we can of course fix a time and we can discuss about it, and we can take it further and I can present. Sir will also be there, and yeah, we can do that. We also have a specific publication for it, which can help you understand the whole commitments and action points more. We have this blue booklet. What you can do is you can of course write to the chapters division. I'll write down my email in the address. You have? Thank you so much. So yeah, you can directly contact me. This is my email address and you can show your interest. I will provide you with all the necessary support to pursue this project and have a dialogue around it.
Someone has asked,
is there any connection between Charles Wallace scholarships? No, sir. This is something independent. The research scholarship program that we do is entirely different from what this project is. This is an independent thing. Of course, Mr. Umrigar has pointed out not all members are compliant with English or Hindi. Of course, we very well understand that. We can work our way around that. Maybe these are the only two languages, unfortunately, that we know of. And we'll try to see how that can be worked out. Thank you so much, Shamishta ma'am. Good to see you here. How much help can we expect from headquarters? For that, you'll have to, again, Miss Contractor, you'll have to write to the main headquarters, to the chapters division. There can be different ways in different capacities that the main headquarters can help you with. Can life members get this presentation? Sir, the thing is, Mr. Manohar, no, we cannot really, hand out the presentation as such because it's a project that the chapters are supposed to take. The primary objective of doing this presentation was to orient our chapters with that. And it's just, since we wanted to get the concept more out and the approach more approachable, we opened it for everyone, for individuals also.
Thank you.
And if you want, sir, as I said, there's a specific publication that we have. It has all the things that we have presented by far. Nothing new or nothing left in it. So you can see that. You are most welcome. I'm not really sure where you put up, but you're most welcome to INTACH headquarters. Please visit us and I'll be happy to help you with that.
Okay.
Amrita, do we have any other question? Do you see?
there's someone who asked again about the presentation.
Okay, all right. Mm,
There's a question from Ms. Pandyan. Once the project starts, will the chapter give guidance for implementation funding?
of course, you'll get all sorts of funding. I'm not really sure. I think sir did mention about the funding part, but the context of every place will be different. So will the approach be. So you can always seek out help in that particular zone from the headquarters, and things can be worked out, I guess. And regarding the guidance for implementation, of course, we are all here to help you. And the only reason we took up this thing, it was, to be honest, it was very difficult to be able to understand about the concept in the first place and then get it implemented. Now, since we have done it and we know a little bit about it, it will be, it will be easier for us to help you with that. And we are all here for you. No other questions? Okay, all right. So I think we'll probably end today's session here. It was lovely having you all, and it was a good turnout. There are not many people. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, and I would again urge you all, as heritage enthusiasts and heritage professionals, to join us for the next webinars, the next series. There'll be 10, there were total 10 of them, I think, out of which one we did today. And there'll be 9 where we'll be taking up each commitment. And it will be interesting to, again, as I said earlier, it is supposed to be a dialogue. So since everyone belongs to different regions, it will be interesting to see what all do people have to offer in terms of each commitment. So that, since that was the idea behind it, let us try and do that. And everyone is welcome. It will be an open webinar again, and mostly around this time, so that everyone can join. A lot of you might be working professionals, and we understand that. So that is why we have kept these timings. And your suggestions are welcome. You all are welcome to INTACH. Please visit us. Please visit your local chapters, get in touch with your local conveners, and yeah, that's it. And we all will see you in the next session. And thank you for joining. All right, I'll take your leave. Bye-bye. I'll stop the
Bye.
presentation. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.